Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Khalid Masood Kareem. I will show you the top 20 weekly volume leaders of the Karachi Stock Exchange. The Power Cement closed at 6.66 on 15th May 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 6.59. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 7.91 and 5.27 respectively. The stock is in sideways trend. The JSCL closed at 14.01 on 15th May 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 13.67. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 14.90 and 12.99 respectively. The stock is facing resistance for further upside move. The Engros fertilizer mill closed at 63.33 on 15th May 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 62.32. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 67.74 and 58.55 respectively. The stock is in mild uptrend. The Crescent textile mill closed at 24.98 on 15th May 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 22.62. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 27.15 and 21.74 respectively. The stock is in strong bullish trend after a breakout. The Pioneer Cement closed at 63.75 on 15th May 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 61.15. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 66 and 56.51 respectively. The stock is due for correction. The PAC Film closed at 14.48 on 15th May 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 12.28. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 17.06 and 11.47 respectively. The stock is strongly bullish. The Pakistan International Bulk Terminal closed at 9.39 on 15th May 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 9.30. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 10.49 and 8.80 respectively. The stock is trading sideways. The Dera Ghazi cement closed at 84.68 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 81.85. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 90.44 and 79.41 respectively. The stock is trading sideways. The PAC Electron closed at 23.57 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 23.12. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 26.40 and 20.85 respectively. The stock is trading sideways. The Fauji Food closed at 10.90 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 10.52. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 12 and 8.81 respectively. The stock is in mild uptrend. The Agrotech closed at 4.73 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 4.06. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 5.37 and 3.65 respectively. The stock is strongly bullish. The K Electric closed at 3.06 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 2.95. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 3.54 and 2.76 respectively. The stock is within a rectangular pattern since 6 weeks. Such patterns are notorious for a breakout. The Dewan Cement closed at 8.91 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 8.14. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 10.25 and 7.17 respectively. The stock is having a strong bull trend. Expect more price appreciation during the current week. The HUM network closed at 11.10 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 9.21. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 13.44 and 8.76 respectively. The stock is having a strong bull trend. The Fauji Cement closed at 17.78 on May 15, 2020. The weekly close is above the current week's pivot level at 17.73. The weekly resistance and support levels are at 19.40 and 15 respectively. Chart patterns show a rising wedge formation. Increasing volume within a pattern is pointing to breakout. This anticipated bullish breakout needs a close above the 18.65. The trending indicator is also favoring the bulls of this stock. The HASCOL Petroleum closed at 14.58 level on Friday 15 of March 2020, which is below the weekly pivot level of 14.82. The weekly resistance and support are at 17.70 and 13.10. Sideways trend is likely to continue in the backdrop of past 6-week consolidation. The TRG closed at 23.77 level on Friday 15 of March 2020, which is above weekly pivot level of 21.61. The weekly trading produced a big white candle. It is interesting to note that this big white weekly candle is made up by 3 daily white, 2 spinning candles and 2 daily gaps. The weekly resistance and support are at 25.93 and 20.45. The weekly technical indicators are suggesting more upside gain. The Unity Foods closed at 12.96 level on Friday 15 of March 2020, which is below weekly pivot level of 13. This stock produced a doji just after 1-week rally. The weekly resistance and support are at 14.89 and 10.51. Surge above weekly resistance will lead to more gains, otherwise it may opt for consolidation. The Maple Leaf Cement closed at 26.78 level on Friday 15 of March 2020. This stock is consolidating for past 2 weeks. The weekly close is above the pivot level of 26.40. The weekly resistance and support are at 28.80 and 25.17. Technically it is in sideways mode with an inflated volume figures. The Worldcall Telecom closed at 0.94 level on Friday 15 of March 2020. This penny stock is the weekly volume leader. It failed to produce a long white candle and left a significant upper shadow, which is just a profit taking at the strong resistance zone. The weekly close is above the pivot level of 0.91. The weekly support is at 0.73. Technical indicators are bullish and may encourage it for more creeping recovery. The KSE 100 index closed at 34,008 level on Friday 15 of March 2020. It is under consolidation for the last 2 weeks. The weekly close is above the pivot level of 33,619. It is facing strong overhead resistance around 35,500. Technical indicators are residing at bull and bear boundary. Successful penetration of the resistance level may lead to healthy gains. The support for current week is around 32,100. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel.